Hey friends, how you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kuf Aleph, Daf 101, Masechta Ksubis. Friends, well today, I don't know, what are we doing today? We're talking about Mima Enes, Shnia, Ilonis. It's like we're back in Yevomis. Alright, and then we're gonna, let's see, maybe we'll just try to finish the parak. Maybe let's just try to do that. Let's try to finish the parak today. And then we'll be getting up to the 12th parak of Masechta Ksubis, which is pretty exciting. Getting towards the end, of course, we got another 12 pages or so left, so let's do it. It says the Mishnah and Daf Kuf Amud Beis, Hamima Enes, Ketan what a Mima Enes is. Of course, a Mima Enes is a Ketana who's married Midar Abonu. Ketana who's married Midar Abonu. So if you have a minor girl, her father could marry her off Mida Oraisa, but we did see, it was on Daf, no, where did we see this? On Daf, where did we see this? Oh, come on, where was that? What was, Nun Zainam and Beis, was it? Yeah, we saw in Daf Nun Zainam and Beis that even though Mida Oraisa, a father could marry off his daughter who was a minor, we don't do that practically speaking. But nonetheless, if a father marries his minor daughter off, she's married midoraisa. Now, if the father is dead, or he's actually son Yevamis, that there could actually be another situation where she's a almana b'chaye avia or something like that. A yisoma b'chaye av, something like that. Anyways, if the father dies and then the mother or brother marries her off, so that's only midrabanan, and she could just leave at any time. That's what's called mima enes hashniya. We learned about shniyas larayis in Masechta Yevamis. Those are arayis midrabanan, like I think your mother's mother or something is midrabanan. I think the last time we had a shniya, I also wasn't sure, and I threw out that guess. Vailonis, as well as an Ilonis. Ilonis is a girl who will never reach puberty and will never be able to have children. Ein loen ksuba, so they do not receive a ksube if they get divorced or widowed or anything. Vilo Paris, and as Rashi explains, Paris means, we said Paris, we said pidyona tachas perosel, that the husband needs to redeem his wife if she is taken captive, in exchange for the fact that he can eat the fruits of the nichse melub. So, but that wouldn't be the case in mima enes shniya and ilonis. V'lo mezonis, if they are widowed, they don't get groceries paid for. V'lo blois, and they don't get back their right if she brought in like clothing as part of the nichse tzon barzel, so they don't go back to her if they get divorced. Now, if the fellow married her knowing from the beginning that she was an Ilonis, well then yesh l'ksuba. So then she would receive a ksuba. If a kohen gadol marries a widow, which of course we know from Masechta Yevomis is not allowed, or if a divorcee or a chalutzi marries a kohen hedjit, or mamzer so nesina Yisrael, bas Yisrael l'noson mamzer, or a mamzer so nesina who marries a Yisrael, or a bas Yisrael who marries a nosin or a mamzer, yesh lem ksube. They have a ksube. Rashi says, at least in the context of the kohen gadol, but I assume it applies to others as well, that because in this case, she knows that, right, she doesn't want to marry him because she'll be a halala, the children will be halalim, so she doesn't want that. So, but he kind of convinces her because he wants it. So, therefore, she's entitled to her ksube. Says the Gemara, Rav Toni Ketani Yotza beget ein lo ksube b'chol shkin ma'enes. So Rav teaches that if you have a ketana who's married mida oraisa, and therefore the way to dissolve that marriage would be via a get, meaning she was married off by her father mida oraisa. So ein lo ksube, she nonetheless, if she gets divorced, she does not receive ksube. V'chol shkin ma'enes, and certainly a ma'enes who just bezounces the marriage, because she's only married midrabanan, so then she would not receive a ksuba. Shmuel Tani mima enes ein lo ksuba aval yotza beget yesh lo ksuba. Whereas Shmuel teaches that a mima'enes doesn't have a ksuba. But if she's married by her father midoraisa, and the marriage can only be dissolved by way of a get, yesh laksube, so then she would receive a ksuba if they get divorced. Vaz the Shmuel with timing, and Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. The Amar Shmuel, that says Shmuel mima'enes ein lo ksuba, that a mima'enes does not receive a ksuba when she leaves. However, yotze beget yesh lo ksuba, but if she leaves with a get, right? If she's married midoraisa and the marriage must be divorced, dissolved by way of a get, so then she receives a ksuba. Mima'enes lo pasla min ha'achin. So if she's married midorabanan as a ketana, and she leaves, so she could still marry one of the brothers, right? It's not considered achos ish. Yeah. Well, no, there will be ashes ach essentially. Vilo pasla mina kehuna, and she wouldn't, right? If right, she wouldn't be considered a divorcee, so she could still marry a kohen. Yotze beget, but if she gets divorced with a get, well then pasla mina achin. So then, Babylon. So then pasla mina achin. So right, so then she wouldn't be able to marry any of the brothers. It would be ashes ach upasla mina kehuna, and she would not be able to marry a kohen. Mima'enes eina tzricha lamtin shlosh chodashim. If she just bezounces, so then she does not need to wait 3 months to get remarried. Yotze beget tzricha lamtin shlosh chodashim. But if she gets divorced by way of a writ of divorce, a get, so then she would have to wait 3 months to get remarried. Michael Mashmalon. Tanina, why do we need this? Don't we already learn in the Mishnah, Kulu, all of these things, Mima'enes, Bo'ish, Umutu B'kur V'Isel, that if she's Mima'enes, so then he could still marry her relatives. V'Imutez B'Krov, and she could still marry his relatives. V'lo Pastam Mina Kahuna, and she is not disqualified from marrying a kohen. Nosan Lo Get, if he gives her a get, who also B'Krov V'Isel, then he is forbidden to her relatives, and she's forbidden to his relatives, and she is no longer allowed to marry a kohen. It's 3 tilot. So answers the Gemara, well, there's one thing missing in that Mishnah. What's missing in that Mishnah is the thing about waiting 3 months, that if she receives a get, she has to wait 3 months. If she's mima'enes, so then she does not have to wait 3 months. That's the nafkamina. And that is why we need Shmuel, and we can't simply rely upon the Mishnah, Babel Yon. Okay, so says the Gemara, Lema Ketanoi. Let's say that this machlokas between Rav and Shmuel is actually really a machlokas Tanoi. Rabbi Eliezer, says Rabbi Eliezer, Ein Maisek Ketana Klum, that the actions of a minor are irrelevant. Ve'ein Balazakai Bim Mitziosa, and her husband cannot merit to the things that she finds, not the things that she makes, and not to annul her vows. It does not inherit her. It doesn't become tomiter if he's a kohen. So what do we see? The fact of the matter is, right, at the end of the day, she would not be considered his husband at all. The only difference is that she would need to do meun. I believe we said in Masechta Yevamos has to be done in front of like 3 judges or something like that. Meaning it's a little bit more than, I guess, just leaving, but she has to do this meun process. Okay? But it doesn't involve a get. But other than that, she wouldn't be considered, practically speaking, married for those other reasons. Regarding those other reasons. Rabbi Yoshua says, Rabbi Yoshua, punkt fakert, ma'aseh ketana klum, that actually the actions of a minor are relevant. Uvayla zakai b'mitziyosa, and her husband can chaparan the things that she finds, and the things that she makes, and he can annul her vows, and he can inherit her, and he can become tummy to her if she dies. At the end of the day, what's the rule? That actually she would be considered his wife, in every manner. The only difference is that instead of getting a get, she does meun when if she wants to dissolve the marriage. So easy. That let's say that Rav, who says that a kitana who even leaves the marriage with a divorce document, still would not receive her ksubah, is like Rabbi Yoshua, is like Rabbi Eliezer, who says ein ma'aseh ketana klum, that the actions of a minor are irrelevant. And Shmuel, who says that she would receive her ksubah, is like Rabbi Yoshua, who says ma'aseh ketana klum, that actually the actions of a ketana are relevant. So with regard to saying that Rav holds like Rabbi Eliezer, sure, that there's no disputing that. Rav, who says that she does not receive her ksubah, is like Rabbi Eliezer, who says that ein ma'aseh ketana klum. However, ki pliga liba de Rabbi Yoshua. But with regard to Rabbi Yoshua, who says ma'aseh ketana klum, so then already both Rav and Shmuel would argue that they hold like Rabbi Yoshua. Shmuel like Rabbi Yoshua. Obviously, Shmuel, who says that she would receive her ksubah, holds like Rabbi Yoshua, who says ma'aseh ketana klum. Rav, who says that she does not receive her ksubah, ad kan lo kam Rabbi Yoshua hasam. The only reason why Rabbi Yoshua says by ma'aseh ketana right, ma'aseh ketana klum. The only reason why Rabbi Yoshua says ma'aseh ketana klum, that's talking about stuff that goes from her to him, right? Stuff that she has to give to him, right? So anything that she finds would go to him, things like that. So Rabbi Yoshua says ma'aseh ketana klum with regard to that, because after all, when it comes to a ketana who is getting married midrabanan, so the reason why we allow midrabanan, her brother and her mother, to marry her off is because we don't want her, we want her to be taken care of. And because we're doing it for her benefit, so we allow him to, get ma'aseh yadeh and that kind of stuff, because after all, the fact that we have this construct is to her benefit. So, once we have that construct for her benefit, because we're doing her a favor, so to speak, she has to relinquish these things to her husband. However, midide lo. But Rav would argue that something like giving her a get, even Rabbi Yoshua would say that the husband wouldn't have to pay for her get, because we're doing her a favor. Let's say he's doing her a favor by marrying her so that she's not kind of left alone. So he's entitled to like the things that she finds and things that she makes, but if they get divorced, he would not need to pay her ksubah. The Mishnah had said v'lo blows, that if they get divorced, so then she would not get back sort of like garments that she brought into the marriage. So Amalei Rav Huna bar Chia Rav Kahana. So it says Rav Huna bar Chia to Rav Kahana, Amart lon mishmei Shmuel, that you said to us in the name of Shmuel, Loshanu ele nichsei melug. That is only that she does not get back the nichsei melug, the property that she brought in. Right. I'm sorry. The property that she did not include in the ksubah that belonged to her, that she would not get back. Aval nichsei tzon barzel, but the nichsei tzon barzel that she wrote into the ksubah, that she would get back. Isla, she would get that. Havi bar Papa aheya. So Papa says, okay, well, what are we talking about with this statement of Kahana in the name of Shmuel? Ilema mima enes. If we're talking about mima enes, where she just leaves the marriage. Well, if these garments exist, let her take them back. If these garments no longer exist, so then she wouldn't take them back. And if we're talking about an ailonis, this girl is unable to have children, if they exist, let her take both of them. But if they don't exist, well then I would say punkt fakert. Nichsei melug debirshusei kaimei islam. So the nichsei melug, which are hers, she never wrote them to the ksubah, so she would be able to get compensated for that. Nichsei tzon barzel dilav birshusa kaimei, but the nichsei tzon barzel, which she brought into the marriage, and he now has access to them, and he was able to use them. So I would say that those she would not be able to get back. Yet, Rav Huna bar Chia is saying that the nichsei tzon barzel davka, she gets back. So, Ela Ashniya. So rather, what Shmuel is referring to is the Shniyas Larais. V'kansu Rabbanon Ledida Bedide v'ledide bedido. And the rabbis kind of flipped it around, that normally the things that he would get, right, the nichse tzon barzel, we say that she gets, and normally things that she would get, i.e. the nichse mulug, we say that it goes to him. Amr Rav Shimi bar Ashi shmamino, Rav Kahana says, Rav Shimi bar Ashi, that we see from Rav Kahana, that from the fact that Davka by a shnia, we say that the nichse mulug, the husband can keep. Well, that implies that by any other woman who's not a shnia, so then the nichse mulug would go to her. So we see that Ailala le glima, that if she brings in a garment, karna have, the garment would be considered the principal. Velo michse lo va'azul ad dekale, and we can't say that he can treat it as fruits and that he can keep on wearing it until it until it's no longer wearable. We don't say that we treat it as fruits and he can keep it. Rather, we treat it as keren. We treat it as the principal, and she would be able to take it back. But doesn't Rav Nachman say that they would be considered like fruits and not like the principal? So Rav Nachman pliga, look, Rav Nachman is arguing on Rav Kahana. Okay, in the Ksubis. So ein lo in Ksubis. So we said that in all those cases they do not receive their Ksubis. Amr Shmuel says Shmuel Loshano ela monim mosaim. It says Shmuel, that's specifically the baseline of the Ksubis, the monim mosaim. Aval Tosefes yesh loin. But the Tosefes, they would be able to get the Mima'enes, the Ailonis, the Shnia, they would be able to get the Tosefes. Tani Nami Yochim, we also learn in a price like this, Noshim Sh'amu Chacham Ein Lo in Ksubis, the women that the Chacham said that they don't get a Ksubis, Kigona Mima'enes v'Chavrosea, like the Mima'enes and friends, Ein Lo in Monim Mosayim, they don't get the Monim Mosayim, Aval, Tosefes Yesh Lo in, but they would get the Tosefes, they would get the extra that he added onto the Ksubis. But the women about whom the Chacham said that they must leave the marriage and not receive a ksuba on the way out, kigon overis hadas, for example, if she becomes irreligious, and friends, in learn tosefes, they don't get the tosefes, and certainly they don't get the baseline. Mishum shemra, and a woman whose marriage gets dissolved because she had an extramarital relationship, notelas mashal faneo, so then she can chaperain, basically nichse malug, v'yotza, and then she leaves. So Mseya le Rav Huna, this supports Rav Huna, Dam Rav Huna, it says Rav Huna zinsa, that if she's mezana, lo yifsida b'lo se'ah kayomin, she could still take sort of whatever goods that she has, that she brought in and didn't write into the ksuba that belonged to her, she can leave with them. Tanakame de Rav Nachman, a Tanatah for Rav Nachman zinsa hifsida b'lo se'ah kayomin, that if she's mezana, then she actually does lose these garments. She cannot take them back. So Rav Nachman says to this Tana, Imi zinsa keleo mizanoi. Maybe she had a relationship with somebody else, but she was mizanoi, but what did her clothing do? Let her take them. Tni lo yifsida b'lo se'ah kayomin. Rather teach, she does not lose her clothing and she could take them out. Her garments, and she could take them back with her. Amar Rabbi Bachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zo divrei Rabbi Menachem Stimta, that this brisa that this teacher taught before Rav Nachman, that she does lose her garments and she can't take them back with her. So that is Rav Menachem Stimta. That is Rav Menachem the Stama, which is super interesting, right? As Rashi says, Harbe mashmaos mishmuos of nishnu stam b'mishnu v'brisa. Super interesting that many of his teachings have been taught unattributed in Mishnayos and Brises. Very, 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 very interesting. We've seen Rabbi Nachum Stimta before. But the rabbis say that if she's mizana, she does not lose these garments, and she could take them back with her, this nichse melug. So we had said that if he had intentionally married her, knowing that she's an Ailonis, so then she receives her ksuba. Amar Rav Huna says, Rav Huna, Ailonis isha ve'ena isha. That an Ailonis in some ways is considered, it has like ishus, is considered like a wife, and in some ways is not. Almana isha gemura. Whereas an almana, to a kohen gadol, she's entirely considered like a wife. I.e., she will, let's see, essentially means she'll always get her ksuba. Ailonis isha ve'ena isha. What does it mean that an Ailonis is considered like a wife and also not considered like a wife. So hikir ba yesh la ksuba. Well, if he knew that she was an ilonis going into it, well then she'll receive her ksuba on the way out. Lo hikir ba, but if he didn't know that she was an ilonis and only found out later, ein la ksuba, so then she does not receive her ksuba on the way out. Almana isha gemura. Whereas says Rav Huna that an almana, a widow marrying a kohen gadol, is completely considered like a wife in that bein yikir ba, bein lo yikir ba, whether he knew that she was an almana, whether he didn't know that he was an almana, makes no difference. Yesh lo ksuba, she would receive her ksuba. Rav Yehuda Omer, whereas Rav Yehuda says achazo ve'achazo isha ve'ena isha. Rav Yehuda says that no, both when it comes to ilonis and when it comes to almana and kohen gadol, they're considered a wife and not a wife. Hikirba, if he knew that she was either an ilonis or a kohen gadol or an almana, yesh la ksuba, she receives her ksuba. Lo hikirba, but if you didn't know about it, ein la ksuba, then she would not receive her ksuba. Meis. We have a kasha on Rav Huna who says that when it comes to almana and kohen gadol, either way she receives her ksuba. So konsa b'chezkas shehi kain v'nimtza shehi kain. So we have a price that says that if a kohen gadol marries an almana knowing that she's an almana, she told him that she's an almana, and sure enough she is an almana, yesh la ksuba, so she receives her ksuba. Hostama ein la ksuba, but implying that if he didn't know, then she would not receive her ksuba, whereas Rav Huna says that she gets her ksuba either way. Lo tema hostama ein la ksuba, no, don't imply that stama, that if he didn't know, then there's no ksuba. Ela ema konsa b'chezka she'ena kain. No, I'll say that the implication is that if he married her because she told him that she was not an almana, v'nimtzeis shehi kain, and it turns out that she is an almana, ein la ksuba, so in that case she does not receive her ksuba. But aval stama, but if he just married her and it didn't know that she was an almana, or she never told him that she's an almana, she never told him that she's not an almana, it was just stam, so my isla, then she would receive a ksuba. So the implication being, whether he knew that she was an almana at the time, or whether he didn't know but he found out later, she would receive a ksuba. The only time that she would not receive a ksuba is if she lied to him and said that she's not an almana. Hadutani b'chezkas she'ikain v'nimtzas she'ikain. Perfect the Gemara, but 1 second. If we're saying that right, so the price that said that he marries her with the intention, right, knowing that she's an almana, and it turns out that she's an almana, we want to say that the implication is that even if he married her stam, in all those cases, she would receive her ksuba. Yesh la ksuba lishma'inan stam. But why tell us the situation when she says that she's an almana, and sure enough she is an almana, she gets her ksuba? Tell us the bigger chiddush, which is stama, that if he marries her stam and finds out later she still receives her ksuba. V'chol shekina, and certainly in a situation where she said that she was an almana milichatchila, she would get her ksuba. V'od, right, and he went ahead with it anyways, so she would get her ksuba. V'od, and more so, Tani konsa biyadua v'nimtzeis biyadua. It's taught that we learn in the Brisa that if he married her knowing that she is a almana, v'nimtzeis biyadua, and obviously she is an almana, yesh la ksuba, she would receive her ksuba. Konsa stam. But if he marries her stam and finds out later that she's an almana, ein la ksuba, she does not receive a ksuba. Tiyuf to Rav Huna. So there you go. It's a kasha and Rav Huna, that we have a brisa explicitly saying that if he found out later that she's an almana, so then she would not receive her ksuba. Rav Huna masnisan ata'isei. Rav Huna got confused by the Mishnah, because who saw me to come maflik by lonis, v'lo come maflik by almana, that if we look at the Mishnah, our Mishnah definitely makes a chilik by an ilonis, that it says if he knew that she was an ilonis, then she gets her ksuba, but if not, then she doesn't get her ksuba. But it didn't, there was no such distinction when it came to an almana. So mechlal da almana afilu b'stama nami isla. So therefore, Rav Huna figured by an almana there is no such distinction. Almana the kohen gadol, whether he knew that she was an almana, whether he found out later, she would receive her ksuba. But in fact, that's not the case. Ki katani la almana aplugda da ilonis koi. That when the Mishnah mentions an almana, it's on the on the back of, on the shoulders of, I don't know. It's going on the momentum of whatever the word is of ilonis. That meaning the Mishnah had made the distinction by an ilonis that if he knew that she was an Ilonis, she gets the Ksuba. If he didn't know that she's an Ilonis, then she doesn't get the Ksuba. And then we mention Amona, so it's the same distinction when applied to Amona as well. Hadron Olach, Amona Nizonis. So that was the Perik Amona Nizonis, and Daf Kuf Aleph Masech Ksubis. So hope you enjoyed. Peace out.